It is Ryan Seacrest here. Everybody needs some variety in life. That's what I love about Chumba Casino. They know how to keep things fresh and exciting. All their games are free to play. Like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire. You can claim free daily login bonuses, too. And they release new games every week. So spice things up with ChumbaCasino.com now for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
Ladies and gentlemen! Welcome to the main event! This is Cinesmack! And the winner is...
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome to bout number 127 of Cinesmack, the podcast about films by filmmakers. I am your host, Mike Keeler. Joining me tonight is our panel of award-winning judges. First, filmmaker and owner of Cheshire Moon Films, Tom, don't forget to kill Philip Haggis.
I'm dedicating this episode to my friend, Sister Cynthia Knickerbocker, who taught me how to play the piano. Brought the house down every time.
Yep. Second, writer, actor, and director, Kyle, time to nut up or shut up fine.
Yes. Remind me, guys. Remind me to tell you guys the story of the day someone found out that I had red on me and thought maybe I had murdered somebody.
We'll save that for after because I think I know the story. Third, filmmaker and owner of Arizona Inc. Studios, Andrew Fuckadoodle-Doo Zumwalt.
I don't believe this. You just took my quote. I was going to say, oh, fuck a doodle do.
Yes.
I felt there was a high chance for that on this one.
Oh, no.
I bet I do not get what Gabe is going to say. I bet I don't get it in his intro, but we'll see.
You might.
Fourth, filmmaker and owner of One Genome Short Productions. I've been watching you since I could masturbate. I mean, not that they're connected. Rowald.
No, that's not what I was going to say. Fuck this clown.
All right. Let's get into it. Let's poke the monkey, find out what we're discussing this month.
Ladies and gentlemen, undead and just plain dead, welcome to the main event. Tonight, two man-eating movies tear each other limb from limb. Which will live to see sunrise, and which will be dead before dawn. In the first corner, from 2004, written by Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright, directed by Edgar Wright, starring Kate Ashfield, Simon Pegg, and Nick Frost. Shaun of the Dead! In the second corner, from 2009, written by Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, directed by Ruben Fleischer, starring Jesse Eisenberg, Emma Stone, and Woody Harrelson. Zombieland!
Normally, I think there's a couple of us on here that are not big horror movie fans, and it's usually difficult whenever we do our October shows because we want to do something that falls into that category. But these two movies are absolutely phenomenal in my opinion. I love him. It's the right amount of gore and comedy all mixed together. So let's start it off with our first round, which is writing.
Shaun of the Dead. It was one of Edgar Wright's first movies, and it really kind of, as we know, it set the stage for his trilogy, and he has this way of writing these scripts where you get rewarded by paying attention. Now you can just sit down and you can watch Shaun of the Dead with just very casually and just have it on in the background. But like when you sit down and you really focus on it, you're suddenly hit with all of these callback jokes, and there are so many foreshadowing jokes in and lines in Shaun of the Dead, which it's funny because now looking back on it in 2021, it's something that a lot of people do. I mean, Arrested Development was another show that came out around the same time, and they did the same thing where you could just draw this spider web of jokes that are interconnected all throughout the piece. I had seen Shaun of the Dead. We always talk about this, don't we? This is our first time seeing it. This is our 200th time seeing it. I mean, I've seen Shaun of the Dead half a dozen times. And I love it. I think it's fantastic. I had actually never seen Zombieland before, except it was on my watch list, but it was just kind of one of those where I thought I would, I kind of know what it's going to be like. But it was way more entertaining than I thought it was going to be. One of the, with Zombieland, I'm interested, maybe we'll find out in trivia, how much of it is the written dialogue and how much of it is like some ad lib stuff that the actors threw in. If it is all written jokes, and given that we're dealing with Jesse Eisenberg, I feel like most of the jokes were pre-written into the script, and I think Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick it's an absolutely hilarious script, and I was very pleasantly surprised by how funny it was. And then looking back on it, one of the things that I was most surprised about is how polished Zombieland is compared to Shaun of the Dead. And we'll talk about zombie movies in general probably later tonight, but I think I don't know how well Shaun of the Dead is aging as we move forward, and we're starting to see more and more zombie movies. I do think it's a hilarious comedy classic, and but it does have that shine of one of someone's first movies, and we've talked about that in the past too, is that when people start making films, it seems like a lot of people, one of the first 2-3 films on their list that they make is a zombie movie. We'll get into probably why that is. I think everybody here has worked on a zombie movie, haven't you guys? So,
yep.
So it's, yeah. So, I think it's, there's a reason for that, but we'll, I don't know. So I think, Shaun of the Dead gets a lot of credit for starting, the Cornetto trilogy and all of the, the repeating jokes. They're not even in this film, but ones that repeat in the next 2 films. But Zombieland took it to another level and was constantly surprising me with where they went. Quite literally, where they went. Bill Murray's house was quite a surprise. So.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Josh.
Gabe,
it took me a second to unmute. So go ahead, Gabe.
we're sharing a mind tonight, Gabe.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, I totally agree with you about Shaun of the Dead. It's one of those first movies you watch of a director who's insanely talented. I would liken it to something like Clerks. But I think Shaun of the Dead is probably a better movie than Clerks in almost all aspects at this point. But yeah, you are right about it being a layered movie that you can enjoy casually, or you can really dive into and get almost like a world building experience out of, where everything makes sense and it is in context in its own little self-contained world, which I think makes movies great. And I think Edgar Wright is amazing at it. And he did a fantastic job in Hot Fuzz of doing that, which is never letting you feel like you're out of the world he's putting you in. which I think is just awesome and really hard to do to grab people's attentions like that. But yeah, I wouldn't say that I think it ages poorly. It definitely is aging as you watch it, and some of it's less relevant. But the story of zombie films and their analogy to humanity has been around since, really George Romero or pre-George Romero. And I think Shaun of the Dead is another great example of that work shown out in public. It's also hilariously funny and incredibly dramatic in points. There is a scene, which maybe we'll talk about in acting, that really blew me away in Shaun of the Dead when I first watched it. I was like, okay, this is not just a silly zombie movie. This is actually like a real cinematic piece that has something to say and is not just funny, but is also dramatic and interesting. Zombieland is very slick, very funny, really well produced. Anytime you get Jesse Eisenberg in a movie and I don't immediately lose 10 interest points is really good. Woody Harrelson, always entertaining. I mean, it's fit for their characters. It's fit for what they're doing. It's a hell of a lot of fun. And it is a different sort of fun, fair action take on horror films. It's a genre that's been done to death. And so it's interesting to see it done differently. And I think it's a really interesting script and, a fun story and an interesting story.
Yeah, one of the things that I felt about these two, well, they're both so much fun. I think this is going to be this might be a close match tonight. I'm not sure. But if they're both so fun and so entertaining and so original and so creative. And one of the things that I felt when I was watching the two is that I felt that Shaun of the Dead in some ways had a little bit deeper, more nuanced character development than Zombieland. We did get some character development in Zombieland, but it was very kind of superficial at times. They were very fun and interesting characters, but we didn't get a lot of depth with them. But I felt like we got a little more depth, and we cared a little bit more about what happened to them in Shaun of the Dead. We got all these different relationships and this past, and this tension between them that I didn't think was present in Zombieland. Now, I'm not saying that it was necessary for Zombieland because it was so much fun. It was so entertaining, but I think it falls more into the acting category in that case than the writing. For Zombieland. I don't know. I think these are going to be really tough to decide between because they're both so fun. I don't know, Andrew. Help us decide.
I don't know if I'm gonna help you decide, but I would definitely say that Shaun of the Dead is. I would say the bar has been set when it comes to Shaun of the Dead, when it comes to a comedic zombie type movie. I mean, that was like the level for the longest time, and that just goes to the writing and the quality of, like you said, with the jokes, and people repeat the jokes. The jokes are repeated within the movie, and they're still funny, and then they get repeated throughout the trilogy. And there's something to say about that. And I mean, we can't leave out just basically saying that Edgar Wright was the main. I mean, because Simon Pegg helped a lot in developing the story for Shaun of the Dead and getting that to be, I would say, probably part of his humor and part of the quality of writing that I would say that Simon Pegg can do as well. So I don't want to forget him. There's a beautiful humor, and probably one of the first movies I can think of that was a zombie movie that wasn't like all the other zombie movies. And I think that says something about how it was written. Zombieland, I would say, so as I was watching it this time, it kind of just dawned. This is the only zombie road movie, buddy movie, that I think I can think of. I mean, it's a road trip movie, They spend a ton of time going from point A to point B, developing the characters in car, and Tallahassee and Columbia are basically, it's a little buddy movie on the road for a good portion. And buddy movies, and especially road trip movies, seem to be very difficult. And to put that into a zombie universe says something. I would say that Zombieland is definitely a more modern take on the zombie story, and not just the pure, the world is doomed, military comes in and saves the day, and all the other stereotypes that you get with zombie movies. And I think that adds some A, realism, but B, also it takes the genre a little bit differently, because it makes it a little more interesting because it is different. The humor is pretty good. I would say that I laugh a lot more, even though I know they're coming, with Shaun of the Dead. One of my favorite scenes of all time is in Shaun of the Dead. And we can talk about that in overall, but Zombieland, it's funny, it's cute. There are parts that I laugh at, but I wouldn't say that I laugh at every single part every time I watch it. And that's different with Shaun of the Dead. And I don't know if it's just because it's one of those firsts kind of thing, but so.
Yeah, I just watched them both again recently, and I had the same experience. I felt like I was chuckling out loud more with Shaun of the Dead than I did with Zombieland. But I really enjoy Zombieland, and it's very funny. It's very, very creative. And some of it doesn't fall into the writing category. The stuff with the titles on the screen and all that. But I thought the approach was, the writing approach was really creative, and it's a little bit. I don't know. At first when I watched. Just this last time I watched them, I watched Zombieland first, and then I watched Shaun of the Dead. And I thought when I was watching Zombieland, like there was a lot more like it was a lot. I don't know. I'm going to sound like an old person. There was a lot more cursing. It seemed a lot more. I don't know how else to put it. It seemed more dirty. But then when I watched Shaun of the Dead, I'm like, no, it's not any dirtier than Shaun of the Dead. I mean.
It's because of the British accents.
It's maybe it's more interesting when in a British accent or something. I don't know, but
and I would say that, I mean, again, there are still very funny, humorous parts, but I don't know. There's something about Shaun of the Dead that makes me chuckle more. And maybe this is more acting. Maybe you're right. But there are parts in Zombieland that, like the Bill Murray, that entire, and it's multiple scenes, but that entire like montage with Bill Murray, man, I hope they didn't write that all, because man, that whole scene area montage is hilarious and is very Bill Murray and doesn't feel like somebody wrote the part. It feels like Bill Murray just doing some wacky things, saying some lines, and they kind of played off him, because it's fantastic. And I love that scene. I mean, they run around with the proton pack. Does Bill Murray honestly be like, hey, we have a proton pack. You think that should be funny?
Like, that's not what you do. I mean, that's the other thing too, is they did everything you would want to do at Bill Murray's house.
And he doesn't even get to carry his own proton pack. He's using the vacuum cleaner, for God's sake.
Yeah, I'm sure he was happy to share it. I love the Shaun of the Dead. The "We're Coming to Get You, Barbara." That was pretty fantastic. Little nod to Night of the Living Dead. So
yeah, there are a lot of other zombie movies in that film.
Yeah,
I would argue that the Bill Murray cameo in Zombieland may be the best cameo I can remember in any film. It's so out of left field. And you don't expect it. It was never spoiled for me or for anybody. He just shows up in the middle of the movie, and you're like, holy shit, it's so funny.
That's really Bill Murray.
and what's so funny, too, is when they're going into, scare Columbus in the movie theater. Like, so you have those zombie moments when you're watching a zombie movie. You're like, don't go in there. Don't go in there. And you're getting the exact same reaction out of the audience. Like, don't go in there, because... Yes. You know where this is going. This is not going to end well for Bill. And it's so funny because it's that same thing, but there's no zombies involved at all.
It's reversed.
Just,
Yeah, it's kind of in reverse.
somebody in makeup and someone who's trigger happy. This isn't going to end well.
But yeah, and it's different because it's not the damsel in distress going to a place where you're like, don't walk into the scary shed. That's where the killer is.
Right.
And it was that, again, that scene is part of that montage where he's sitting and he's like, this is where you're gonna find out who you're gonna call.
Yeah.
It's Ghostbusters. And they're sitting there watching Ghostbusters in Bill Murray's theater.
I would love to know that they have a notebook somewhere that had the list of top celebrities that they wanted to get in on it, and I'd love to know who else they were considering to plug in for that cameo.
Sure.
Who else was on the list?
I'm guessing Russell Crowe was probably one of them because of the line in there.
Yeah, that was kind of funny too.
All right.
It's not Russell Crowe's house.
Let's
Looking for the Twinkies. Oh.
Let's put it to a vote, fellas. Tom.
God, better script. I'm gonna go with Shaun of the Dead.
All right. Kyle.
Yeah, Shaun of the Dead for me too.
Andrew.
Shaun of the Dead.
And Gabe.
Yeah, more chuckles and better character development. Shaun of the Dead.
All right. In Zombieland, the zombie kill of the week was left over from the script's origin as a television pilot. Every weekly episode would have a zombie kill of the week performed by characters on the show.
I would watch that.
It was also considered one of the best non-made scripts, I think, of 2007. Is that when it came out? So it was like on a blacklist. And everyone was like, why isn't this getting made? Because this script is fantastic.
2009.
Was it? Yeah, okay.
The movie came out in 2009, but it could have been on a blacklist for a while.
For 07, yeah. In Shaun of the Dead, the original script called for Shaun to beat Mary and the hulking zombie with a girl's bicycle. There's not much for the writing of Shaun of the Dead, but I found that really funny.
Oh my God, I can totally see him picking up a tricycle
Yes.
and just beating the crap out of him.
Yes.
And just kind of flopping it around.
Would have liked this. You okay, Andrew?
Yeah.
I want this. Oh God.
All right, let's move on to our second round, which is acting.
Sorry, I was talking on mute, which is something I do quite a bit during work meetings. Acting. Okay. Cameo aside, from the wonderful Bill Murray, who is hilarious in this movie, let's talk about the acting in Zombieland first. Like I said earlier, I am not a big Jesse Eisenberg fan, and I thought his, whatever you consider his acting strengths to be, were done well in this movie. Like, he did an okay job at being this character. I think Emma Stone is always pretty serviceable in whatever she does. Abigail Breslin is okay. Woody Harrelson is like always entertaining, even if he's, doing something crazy or, makes weird choices, like almost like a Nicolas Cage type actor would sometimes. But I thought that the acting was pretty good in this film, but it wasn't anything crazy. The acting in Shaun of the Dead, however, I thought was really good from Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. The supporting characters were funny, and they had their parts to play, but I thought they really played second fiddle to those characters, which I think, they should to some extent because they're supporting characters, but also they didn't really have too much interesting stuff to do, but they added to the story, which is good. There is one acting moment I want to call out, though, and that is when Shaun finds out his mom is infected and decides, that something has to be done, and his friend tries to pull a gun on her, and he absolutely changes tones like in the span of a few seconds, and the movie becomes very dramatic and very sad for a second. And that has always been something that stuck out to me as an example of a really great story beat and an awesome acting moment. And I think Simon Pegg is such a lovable loser and such a believable kind of protagonist that you can root for. And Nick Frost is a great, like, everyman sidekick, underachiever, always funny, there for his friends, but not, so bright and not doing much with his life. I think, though, as far as tropes go, those guys are really, really good at it. So I think they gave excellent performances, and the acting all around was good in both these movies. But I thought Shaun of the Dead had some of the best acting moments for a movie of this type.
It's kind of funny that you say that, because you're really saying that we have two movies that are actually buddy movies. One of them happens to be a road buddy movie, but the other one just happens to be a straight up buddy movie between, Nick Frost and Simon Pegg's characters. I mean, it's a buddy movie about them, and it even at the end, the change in the bar where his mom is going to die is an intense moment. But I even think at the end, when they're still cracking jokes and he knows that Nick's character is going to die, and they're down in the bottom and they think that they're done, and that whole scene, it gets heavy. It's pretty dark. It's pretty, it's a dramatic moment, and is so well done because you're in that moment. They've just gone through the entire bar of the Winchester being overrun, and they end up having this touching moment as friends, thinking this is it. And it really, up until now, minus the one scene with the mom, you've had this comedic banter almost the whole way, and it really pulls in there at the end. It's pretty intense. So I would have to agree. As with Zombieland, I enjoy Woody Harrelson. I think he probably is the standout performance in that movie, just because he's fun and quirky. Jesse Eisenberg, you could have put a number of different people into that role, and they could have probably done it even better, in my opinion. Emma Stone, she's pretty. She's not a bad actress. She really isn't. The role was fine. There wasn't anything amazing where it's like, oh my God, she did so good. It was, Abigail Breslin, again, she's a fine actress. She did fine in the part that she did. But definitely I would say that Woody Harrelson held that movie together between that four.
I think, because it was funny because it got to the first scene where we meet the girls, and I was like, is that Emma Stone? Because she was playing, Emma Stone's kind of like found her characters that she plays. And it seemed very unlike some of the characters that she had played quite a bit, like, Easy A and what's the other one? Like La La Land, stuff like that. And this was very much against type, but kind of before she kind of found that groove, which she's kind of actually starting to drift out of that. But I thought Jesse Eisenberg it's like, he's a difficult actor for me to kind of get my head around. Like, he plays such unlikable characters that it's difficult for me to separate him from the characters. Like, I got to keep reminding myself, he didn't actually make Facebook, like he's not actually, he's not that jerky. It was a role he was playing, and he is able to like go into these roles so thoroughly that I was like, Jesse Eisenberg hasn't really given me a reason to legitimately hate him. I just hate the characters that he plays. So, and he doesn't play those characters that are like annoying yet charming and compelling. Like, they're just really hard characters to watch. And And so I've gotten to the point where if Jesse Eisenberg's in something, I don't immediately turn it off, because he does a pretty good job of finding those movies that you want to watch, with the exception of anything he did in DC movies. So I think the two cameos that I thought, I don't even know if you call them cameos. Actually, it's probably Martin Freeman, who was in Shaun of the Dead for like a second.
That was weird.
And that was actually because I kept pausing it to go back and forth to look at the two lines of people on the fence, because I just think that was fantastic. And then Mike White, who was in Zombieland for like 2 or 3 minutes, and he did White Lotus for HBO just recently, and he did School of Rock and Chuck and Buck. So he's done a lot of I don't want to say super popular films, because people would be like, I haven't heard of either of those, but yeah, I feel like the acting was more solid in Zombieland, but Shaun of the Dead, it's tough because they were doing something that really hadn't been done at this level before in terms of making a smart, funny zombie comedy.
Yeah, for me, it kind of comes down to chemistry when you have like an ensemble movie like this. Is there chemistry between these actors and the characters that they're portraying? And I really felt that chemistry between Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. That they actually seem like, and maybe they are like best buds in real life. Like there was a palpable chemistry there, and they just seemed effortlessly kind of in tune with each other, and they kind of knew what was coming from the others. I felt like there wasn't quite that same chemistry in Zombieland. And you want to kind of feel like that kind of chemistry when there's kind of a love interest in there too, and Jesse Eisenberg and Emma Stone, that they didn't really seem to have that kind of chemistry. And I realized at first they were antagonistic, and then they got to know each other, but that chemistry never really developed. For me. And even, Andrew's been talking about how it's kind of a buddy road film with the zombies. I didn't feel like, Woody Harrelson and Jesse Eisenberg really had that kind of chemistry either. They didn't really, they were fun to watch, but it just didn't seem to have the same kind of natural, chemistry that I saw in Shaun of the Dead.
I didn't say it was successful. I just said that it felt like very much an attempt at a buddy road movie.
Oh no, and I'm not debating that necessarily, because it is definitely kind of that's really what it is. I didn't think of it that way, but when you said it, I'm like, yeah, that's totally what it is. It's a road movie. It's who did all the road movies? It was Bing Crosby who was it? Bob Hope and who was it? Yep. Was it Bing and Bob? Bing. And then you just throw zombies in there, and you've got Zombieland, kind of, But
and I've always seen Jesse Eisenberg as like the discount Michael Cera. I don't know why.
You know what? I was thinking that Michael Cera would have been better in that part.
Well, because I like him better. I do, and I do too. But they have very similar. Whether it's acting styles or it's just personalities are similar, but whenever I saw Jesse Eisenberg, it always reminded me of Michael Cera from Arrested Development, where so I've always thought of Jesse Eisenberg as the discount Michael Cera, and you could put him in Zombieland, and I think it might be a little bit better of a movie.
See, I don't. I guess know. I think that depends on how much do you want to like Columbus.
That's true. That's true.
If he was kind of the main
Michael Cera. Michael Cera would be a more likable person, I think, than Jesse Eisenberg was.
Right, but I see it. So then I'm like, then you lose some of that conflict. Then that you have, you're just like, oh my god, these are the last 4 we have to hope on. Like,
I agree.
If it was Michael Cera in there, you'd just be like, oh yeah, thank God he's in there, so
we're fine.
Michael Cera and Woody Harrelson would be fantastic together. I don't doubt that. But again,
Yeah.
I just go back to Jesse Eisenberg is still like, I got nothing. I got nothing to. I can't. We need characters. We need someone to play these characters. So.
Well, yeah, and I've had that struggle too with
Denzel
separating the.
Sorry, I was waiting for that.
Separating, the actor from the character that they're playing, and there are certain actors where I feel kind of bad for them because people have a hard time separating them from the character that they played, and sometimes they play these awful characters, and people, fans, if you will, can't separate them,
Right.
and I think it makes it hard for them sometimes. They can't escape that. Like, I think of the poor kid from Game of Thrones who played the king.
He left.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that part of the reason that he quit acting is because people had that trouble with him. He was so good at being so awful that people couldn't separate him from that. And so,
but then that begs the question: then is it that the producers are also pigeonholing these actors? Or is it that the producers have such a low opinion of the public? And I'm not disagreeing here, but they have such a low opinion of the public where they're like, hey, man, I'm sorry, but nobody's going to accept you in any other role after this because what you did was, so burned into people's brains.
Right. Do you know of any actors that have escaped that, who maybe played awful characters and escaped and have become well-liked actors?
Alan Rickman.
Well,
yeah,
and I would say to Tom's point, even like Emma Stone, she was still kind of finding her place, and she's done some recent movies that she's exceptional in, and she really has developed as an actress. That, I mean, comparatively to Zombieland, yeah, she's hot. We get that. I know, but my point is that she's come a long way from her kind of awkward, weird phase and really found some really good acting positions where she really shines. I don't know if people had a stigma for her as being always that helpless damsel in distress kind of girl. I don't know. I don't know. But she, when first starting out, was just kind of awkward, and she's really found herself. Cruella is amazing. She's amazing in Cruella.
I would love to sit down and just the flashback scene where Columbus, meets 406 for the first time. I would just love to sit down and watch that scene with Johnny Depp. I bet he finds that to be like the scariest scene in movie history. Watching his ex-wife just completely fucking lose it and like,
oh my God!
After everything that Johnny and Amber have been through, and I mean, their lawsuit just got settled 8 days ago. It's been like 12 years ago.
Really?
Mike's neck is getting hot and he's waving it off. So I think we're done.
Yeah, I'll bet Johnny Depp would like to have the cover of the back of a toilet. That's awful.
They're very litigious. I do not agree with what Gabe just said.
Wow. All right. Time's up.
Neither do I.
Let's do this.
Just allegedly.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, thank
That
you.
clears you of everything.
Yeah, but think about how many people would listen to us if we got sued by Johnny Depp.
That's true. Kyle, vote now.
Johnny Depp's going to end up owning the Cinesmack trademark. Jesus. Anyways.
Everybody else is suing him. Why not?
I guess. The acting in Zombieland is very serviceable and honestly pretty good, but Shaun of the Dead's buddy dynamic is like in top form, so I've got to give it to Shaun of the Dead.
All right. Andrew?
Oh, we're going to go with Shaun of the Dead.
Tom?
I'm going to go with Zombieland because I think top to bottom, Zombieland's got a better cast. I feel like Shaun of the Dead, the top two, to kind of nail it. And then I think once you get past them, you lose a lot of acting weight. So I'm going with Zombieland.
All right. And
Bill
Gabe?
Nye?
I'm going to go with Shaun of the Dead. And I think, I think maybe this is a little more lopsided than I originally expected.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up. So far.
We'll see.
We didn't even talk about him.
Who? What?
Bill Nighy.
Oh.
Yeah.
And he seems like a zombie or a vampire just like in real life. Like you don't even have to add makeup or anything. It's so weird. But it's got to be great for somebody like that to have a niche. Like he's got kind of that a niche to fill, and he gets a lot of work that way.
Oh, very nice pun there.
He's really funny in Hot Fuzz. He's not in it very long, but he's really good at Hot Fuzz.
He's really funny in Love Actually as well.
He's just he's a funny dude.
Yeah.
He's British. Damn it. They're so funny and good at acting and shit. It sucks.
My kids have asked me openly, they're like, what's wrong with Americans? Why can't they do comedy the way British people do? They love British comedy.
Well, because it's a whole different style. It's like a really kind of...
I've always posed that question. Is it reverse for the Brits? Do they watch American comedy and be like, God, their stuff is so funny and ours is so draw and boring?
I don't think so. I think they know they're funny.
Why can't we have somebody more like Kevin Hart here?
Nope, I don't think they say that. I don't think they. I don't think they say that.
I hope not.
I bet they're like, I don't even give Hart money when we do these movies, though.
This week, I think they're trying to export Dave Chappelle. So.
All right, many of the zombie extras are fans of Spaced.
Oh my, good hosting, good maneuver.
Which also starred Simon Pegg and Nick Frost and was also directed by Edgar Wright. They were recruited through the Spaced Out fan website. So most of the zombie extras were fans of Spaced. And, I've got a zombie at my door. They were also paid, any zombie extras were paid £1 a day.
Nice.
And that's a nod to Night of the Living Dead when all the extras were paid $1 a day. Bill Murray did not originally have any lines after he is shot by Columbus. The Garfield line was improvised by Murray, which I loved. So to answer your question, Tom, I believe you're the one that brought up the cameos. Patrick Swayze was offered a cameo role as a zombie before his cancer diagnosis. His scene would have parodied other Swayze movies like Ghost and Dirty Dancing. Zombie cameo roles were also offered to Joe Pesci, Mark Hamill, Dwayne Johnson, Kevin Bacon, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and Matthew McConaughey.
I am so glad they got Bill Murray.
So am I, but I want to see all those other people and what they would have done with them as well. Yeah. Like, I want to see Matthew McConaughey in a Lincoln.
But to be honest, I would love to see Woody Harrelson wrap his arms around Patrick Swayze and do the ghost thing. Yeah. That would be pretty damn fun.
Kevin Bacon doing Footloose.
Footloose,
yeah.
Or could you imagine The Rock as a zombie?
That'd be terrifying.
Yeah. That'd be
absolutely
one badass
terrifying.
Zombie.
All right. Third round, directing.
Our wonderful director we'll start with Zombieland. Ruben Fleischer. He's done Zombieland. He's done Zombieland 2, and the only other movie that I know of that I've seen of his would actually be Gangster Squad. And Gangster Squad is quite a bit of a different movie than Zombieland by far.
I love Gangster Squad.
Yeah, I was going to say Gangster Squad, though, I would not have guessed based on the fact if someone, same director as Zombieland, because it is a completely different skill-wise. It's a different movie. Like there is a night and day difference between the directing styles of Gangster Squad versus actually Zombieland. And I realize that they're different genres and one's not really comedic. It's more dramatic. But he does such a better job, I would say, in Gangster Squad with the way that he poses and frames things, the way that he keeps the action going. And then in Zombieland, and it has to be because of the genre. It has to be because it's a comedic, because he made some really neat choices with the way that he's following the actors, the slow. We've all talked about that with the credits, the slowdown and with the rules, and very humorous and well done. And it's I don't know. It just seems very it's typical. There was nothing that I was like, oh wow, they really thought about that. It was good. I really liked the way that he directed Gangster Squad, I think, better. And so, and I don't know if that was a learning process because it was done afterwards. He also has Emma Stone is also in that as well. And so it's interesting to see the style difference between the two movies. And the reason I bring that up is because Edgar Wright, now going over to Shaun of the Dead, Edgar Wright, yeah, it was, early in his career. He's a director, he's a writer, he does everything. But Edgar Wright, you would never have to tell me this is an Edgar Wright movie because Edgar Wright has a very specific style. And it's not like a Steven Spielberg type of style where it's very cinematic and glorious and just takes the wonder away from you. Edgar Wright has a very specific directing style. He does a lot of the scenes where he does the really quick cuts, which, by the way, if you've ever tried to duplicate one of them, because I have, it is not easy. I don't know how he does it. It seems like it's easy, but it's not. He has some niche, but he does it in almost all of the trilogy. Actually, I think he does it in all of the trilogy. He does it in like Scott Pilgrim versus the World, Baby Driver, all of these movies. He has that same feel and that same style. Edgar Wright is always directing action, even when there's not action. The camera is always in your face. It's always moving. It is always doing something to get you in the middle of his story. You feel like you are in the story instead of watching the story unfold. I don't know. I'm a huge Edgar Wright fan. He's probably one of my favorite directors. He's very corny. He's very kitschy. He, again, has a very specific style that I really enjoy, that fits in the way that he does stuff. Doesn't mean he's made golden movies across the board, because he hasn't, but he most of his movies, I would say, are pretty top notch and at least enjoyable to watch. I really wish perhaps that Ruben has done more. Maybe he will. I can look really quick. He did Venom. See? Did not know that, and I would have never have guessed that, because that, once again, is a completely different movie versus all the others that he has done. I think Gangster Squad is pretty good, and he should stick with that style. Maybe. I don't know. But I did enjoy Zombieland and Zombieland 2, so maybe that says something.
I thought Gangster Squad was a mess. I didn't like it very much. I thought it was it was over long, and it just there's scenes like I didn't even like in terms of like the directing and editing. It was hard to figure out exactly what was going on. And then the fact that he did Zombieland before that, I thought maybe he was overcomplicating things and trying to make the movie too smart for its own good. So I don't know. I didn't really care for Gangster Squad very much. So whatever.
We appreciate your time that you've had on this podcast.
I'm a founding member, man. That's
right. Damn it.
There's no way out of this thing for me.
You have tenure.
I have tenure. Yeah. Yeah.
Literally.
11 year.
So, I won't argue that Edgar Wright's directing is superior to Ruben's, but I think I do think it's kind of funny. I don't know, maybe Mike's got trivia on this, but the opening titles and the way that the graphics are kind of become part of the scenes is at the beginning of Zombieland is a very Edgar Wright thing to do, and he did in Baby Driver. And you do have trivia about that. Okay, good, because it was kind of interesting that we're doing this against an Edgar Wright movie, and then later on, Edgar Wright started using this more and more into his movies. So, and I thought it was really well done. It's something that style is something that people try to pull off now. In terms of putting graphics into even watching sporting events, they're doing it, and the fact that he was doing it 12 years ago is pretty impressive. But, aside from that, I think I feel like Zombieland probably, I don't know. I always like to picture the directors on the set and how that they worked with the actors. 'Cause it's one of the things that I have a hard time doing is being able to build all the pieces that when they hand it over to the editor, they're able to kind of put the puzzle together. And Shaun of the Dead looks like that would have been very difficult to do. And I'm not sure how much these two guys rely on storyboards, but if they don't use storyboards, then both of these movies are just all the more impressive.
I would agree.
Just real quick, sorry. I think Edgar Wright still uses like a little handy cam or photos and stuff and makes his own storyboards that way. For some reason, that's sticking with me. And I believe Robert Rodriguez kind of does the same thing as well. They take photos on set and map it all out and then shoot it.
I know he did that for Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Because that's. And I think is it Scott O'Malley? Didn't he? Who's the guy that drew O'Malley? I forgot his first name. But when they did the table read, he was like on there doing some of the storyboards, doodling as the live read was going on. It was incredible. So I just want to say too, I love the Psycho reference in Zombieland, the fight between Columbus 406 when he rips the shower curtain down. I thought that was a nice little touch too.
Yep.
Yeah, I have to say that.
Sorry, Brian Lee O'Malley.
Brian Lee O'Malley. All right. Sorry, Brian.
I have to say that I agree with Andrew in that Edgar Wright might be one of my favorite modern directors. He does have a very distinctive style, and but it's also a very entertaining style, very energetic style. Those sequences you were talking about, Andrew, where with those quick cuts, and you do see that in a lot of the movies, and especially the Cornetto trilogy, and probably intentionally because that was kind of a stylistic choice for that kind of pseudo trilogy kind of thing. But it really is quite impressive, and it's something it's a great, for me, it's kind of a great transitional mechanism, a device to transition between like scenes and that kind of thing. And it also kind of goes into a little bit of what Tom was talking about before, where there's kind of like references to things in the past. It's like self-referential at times. Like you've seen this before, and maybe that's part of the whole Shaun of the Dead thing, because a bit of it is like, well, they're almost like zombies before the zombie apocalypse, and they just kind of relive the same thing over and over every day, and they're just kind of in this routine. And after the apocalypse happens, you barely even notice it first, because it's so similar. And so I think there's a lot of that, those editorial choices and those kinds of things kind of like harken back to that. It's like we've seen this before. It's repeating itself. But one of the things about Edgar Wright is his pacing is just fantastic. The pacing of these movies is generally pretty good. There are times when maybe he doesn't always match that pacing, but most of his movies is like there's not a wasted second, and you're never bored. And that, I think that comes down to directing and editing, and he's really got that down. Now, I thought Zombieland was also really well put together, and the editing was fantastic in that too. Because I didn't ever really feel too many times that there was much of a slowdown in it, especially during some of the action sequences. And the very beginning of the movie is like kind of frenetic. There's a lot going on. You see a lot. I can't imagine all the setups and the makeup that they had to do just to get that kind of opening couple of minutes of Zombieland.
To get all the rules laid out.
Yeah, well, and then just all those shots of like the apocalypse happening, and people running from zombies, and like how many setups is that? And
the kills of the week, all of those setups.
Yeah. I'll let Kyle have a minute.
Okay. So my bias is going to be shown, but I think Edgar Wright is one of the best filmmakers around today at putting a film together, and has been doing it at an incredibly high level for a really long time. And this is a great example of that. Like Andrew said, he's always shooting action even if nothing's happening. He never lets things get boring or stagnant unless that's the point. I don't feel like he ever loses focus on the story he's trying to tell and how he wants the audience to feel. And that's something that, as we know from watching overlong, bloated movies, that's something that a lot of directors struggle with, is to hone their vision and craft and what they're putting together down to a science to get the desired effect out of the audience. And Edgar Wright is a master at that. One of the scenes I like to point out when I think of that is if you've ever seen The World's End, where they go into a bar and they order pints of beer, but one guy doesn't drink. So they do this dramatic fade, like crash zoom to a guy pouring pints of beer. And then he pours a glass of tap water and the music changes and the tone changes. And it's meant to like make you think like, oh, this guy's a sissy, and it's just this little funny moment. And I thought, God damn, that's really creative and funny. His transitions are great. Like you said, he doesn't waste time. Like I feel like everything he's doing has to be done and he wants to do it. He's never filling stuff out, which I think is awesome and really rare. No offense to Fleischer, who directed Zombieland. He made a really slick, entertaining action movie that's different. It's a different type of zombie movie. And in a time when we were being overrun with zombies, pun intended, in media, to do something different was really rare. And it wasn't just regurgitated the same old story we've seen for 50 years about zombies. It had some of those aspects, but it's really competently put together and well done. But I just, in my opinion, Edgar Wright is on a different level than most directors.
Yeah, I would agree that you're spot on. They're both enjoyable movies, but Edgar he shines. We talked about how there's always action going. Even the scene where they run into their doppelgangers, that there's so much action going on, and then right up to that point when they bump into each other, it just stops. And, the music stops, the excitement stops, but it slowly builds to the joke. Like, he's really good at taking those moments where it's like, this scene is going to happen, there's going to be some dialogue, but the whole time we're building up to this really funny joke of the doppelgangers walking by each other. Mm-hmm. And that sense is just, that's spot on. It's just so good. It's so good. It's tasty.
I feel like it's also really rare.
I would agree. I think it is very rare.
Directors have that spark and that ability to nail that so many times. And Edgar Wright just seems to know how to do it, how to make it happen.
Agreed.
Which I think is crazy. I think he's so talented. It's really astounding. As you watch him go on in his career and some of the stuff he does, I know we're not talking about that, but some of that stuff is just it's out of this world.
Yeah, he's one of those directors where when his movies are coming out, it's like I make it a point to get to the theater to see it. Like, COVID be damned, I will fucking mask up for 2 hours if I need to. So I don't fucking care. I want to see what he does next. So last night in Soho, I'm dying to see. I can't wait.
and they're remaking The Running Man, and he's the director for The Running Man. I can like.
Here's the other. I'll tell you. I don't get excited about Edgar Wright movies until I see a trailer. So there's always so much speculation about stuff he's working on and stuff like that. He's one of those. Don't get my hopes up. Don't break my heart, man. So wasn't he on Ant-Man for a spell?
But
so like,
it shows if you watch Ant-Man, you still see his comedic beats in Ant-Man.
I totally get that, but I'm just like I'm not going to get excited about his movies until I see that they're completed and ready to go.
All right,
no, that's fair.
Let's put it to a vote, Andrew.
Ooh, this one's tough for me. I think I'll go with Edgar Wright.
All right. Gabe.
Yeah, no question. Shaun of the Dead.
All right. Tom.
I'll take sloppy thirds, and I will also take Edgar Wright.
Kyle, I'm pretty sure I know what you're going to say.
I'll take fourths and take Edgar Wright. Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame Zombieland is against Shaun of the Dead.
This is a horrible matchup. I don't know who did it, but this is a horrible matchup.
Real quick, you can find Edgar Wright on YouTube. His channel is Edgar Wright Here, and I recommend going back and watching some of his videos that he made when he was a youngin'. Two of them are from 1993. One's called Wheels on Wheels, and the other one is called Gun Fetish. And I loved watching them because it's what I used to do when I was learning to edit. I would take movies, put it to music. You know, I would use like 20, 30 films and put it all together and make a music video. That's what he's done. He also has some old commercials that he's done and music videos and some home movies. So if you want to check it out, go there.
He also teaches a master class.
Yes, he does.
Does he really? I was just going to say,
which I haven't watched yet.
It's really good. If you get surprised, right?
Yeah. All right. John Carpenter turned down a chance to direct Zombieland, according to producers Paul Wernick and Rhett Reese. Carpenter was very interested in directing what was then to be a TV pilot. However, the project transitioned into a feature film. Carpenter withdrew his interest. Although Carpenter loved the script, according to Reese, his schedule would not permit him the time necessary to direct a full-length film. Director Ruben Fleischer has said that he was inspired to make Zombieland by Shaun of the Dead. So he used it.
What do you mean? What do you mean by?
What? He wanted to direct Zombieland, and he was inspired by Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, he was okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
Sorry, I was processing what you were asking.
No. That makes a lot of sense. Again, that I think shows the cornerstone that Shaun of the Dead did for zombie movies.
Yeah. When Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg began pitching this movie, Film 4 Productions showed interest in it. Then Film 4 significantly cut back its budget, leaving the movie without a production company for a while. Because Wright was still hoping to get this movie made, he held off on taking other directing jobs while searching for new financing for the movie, and ended up having to borrow money from his friends. Quote, "For me, to take on a television job meant that I was like pushing the film back. So I was going rapidly broke. I was like majorly in the red." According to Wright, Pegg still hasn't allowed him to pay back the money he owes him from those lean times.
I think they're even.
Yeah.
I would agree. I would agree 100%.
All right. Fourth and final overall.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I'd like to discuss in this category. And one that we often do is music. And I think that's one thing that we didn't talk about with Edgar Wright in the previous category is his love of music. And not only is his editing flawless. He often leverages music to kind of pace his editing, and it's never more evident than anything like Baby Driver. I mean, that movie is literally edited to music. The character is in love with music, and everything that he sees and does is in a way kind of coordinated with that music. But I think that's also something that happens in Edgar Wright's other films. Pick one, and it's coordinated in one way or another, or enhanced in one way or another by music. And it's pretty clear that Edgar Wright really loves music and leverages it very heavily in his films. And I think that's another thing that makes him such a great director. Is he's not only worried about the acting or the visuals or the special effects or anything. He's also, it all comes together somehow, and that includes the music. And I find that really fantastic with him. And I'll let you guys expound upon that if you like. But the other thing I'd like to talk about is the difference between the zombies in these two movies, and how zombies are approached. And it's kind of something that you could talk about in the zombie genre altogether. And the primary thing would be the speed of the zombies. Because in Shaun of the Dead, it's kind of the classic, lumbering, slow kind of zombie. But in Zombieland, it's the holy shit, they're fast, run kind of zombie. And I find that interesting how, people approach zombies differently that way. So I thought maybe we could talk about those two topics a little bit.
Meanwhile, Danny Boyle's just laughing because he's just like, yeah, my zombies could kick your zombie's ass.
They're not zombies. They're not zombies. He keeps saying they're not zombies.
Yeah.
That's from Danny Boyle. That's not from me.
Yeah. You question me about Danny Boyle.
I can show you quotes.
It's interesting that a lot of people, especially with zombie movies, one of the first questions that they'll say is, are they George Romero zombies or are they the slow traditional zombies? And so it's interesting how different people take on the zombie genre and how they portray them in their universe. Even how they became zombies. Are they undead versus is it a virus that the people are technically they're just really sick, and I think that poses also a different way of how the characterization of the zombie acts, and how they bring that into the story to make the universe more interesting. You don't worry too much about cardio when your zombies are really slow versus ones that can actually run and chase you.
Right.
So yeah. It's an interesting.
Fast zombies are an interesting gimmick, super aggressive fast zombies, but it never made much scientific sense to me why a decaying husk of a human being would suddenly, would be able to retain, all of this motor function. I know it becomes like a predator, but it's also rotting and falling apart. And so I never quite liked fast zombies. I mean, they work for certain things. They're good for a scare, and they're they're big in I think they're pretty big in Korean zombie movies is a thing. I just saw Last Train to Busan, and I never liked fast zombies, to be honest. I think they're a fun gimmick, and they work to shock you and scare you. But they, if you want me to take any of your movies seriously about the undead, they have to be slow, shambling, mounds of flesh.
But doesn't that also depend on the source of said zombies versus Shaun of the Dead? You have undeadness, where the zombies are actually undead in a sense. They rise, they can survive things that normal people would never be able to survive because they're undead technically. Whereas you have Zombieland, where it's a virus, and you have these people are still alive; they're just infected.
Yeah, but they're not continuing their normal daily human life.
No. That
you are eating, and exercising, and going to the doctor and being healthy.
You're right. You're right.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that is where the definition comparatively changes, where you have the undead zombie are normally socialized with the slow kind of zombie versus the viral ones, which they're still normal. They can be fast or angry or, mutations have happened versus that more traditional. But I
think the slow zombies, I mean, obviously they present a lot of writing and directing challenges. You get into a situation where like, well, why don't you just run? And so then you have to, there's a lot of, fabricating these kind of, outrageous scenarios that are going to be very hard to hold up to common sense. But, at the same time, then you could do something like World War Z where you just replace instead of speed, you go with quantity, You don't need speed when, 90% of the world is zombies. There's zombies everywhere. So,
right. And I feel
Shaun,
like with the slow zombies, that's what they do a lot. You eventually encounter such a quantity that you can't overcome.
It doesn't matter how fast they are.
Right.
And
there's just too many.
And that shows off, even though it was used a bit for comedic take. I mean, that shows off when they're actually going to the Winchester as a group. They run into the horde that's in front of the bar, and there's just so many of them. And up until that point, they were in gardens and small, close quarters where a one-on-one is difficult but not unbelievable. And then you get into something like that where it's like it doesn't matter if they're slow or fast. You would be overtaken.
Right, and oftentimes they're kind of in the way of a certain goal. The slow zombies are just kind of in the way, But I also think, I think zombies are an interesting reflection of society to a certain degree, and what people's fears are during any given period of time.
Especially lately.
What's that?
Especially lately.
Yeah. So lately, what would you say they are lately? Fast zombies or slow zombies? It feels like a slow creeping death right now.
Mentally slow zombies, but
mentally slow. Yeah,
we'll get a variant here coming pretty soon where they all turn into Olympic sprinters.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's not a very unique observation, but I do feel like it would be interesting to look at these time periods and what kind of social, things were going on in society and what kind of social issues people were having, and compare them to the zombie movies that came out in those eras. Because there's probably been a zombie movie for every era since, I don't know, when did Romero come out with? 60 something. Yeah. So you could probably make some interesting historical parallels there between the portrayal of zombies and what was going on in society at the time.
Well, and this is a hot topic too. Like we are casually talking about, something that Kyle, he's cited a little bit on his Envision, but this is actually a really, really hot topic, even on the internets or within friend groups, of what actually says this is a zombie and the characteristics. And I mean, I've read and I've seen very heated battles of that's not a zombie. I don't care a zombie has to be this, and this, otherwise it's not a zombie. And nope. Zombies can be this, and this too, and it's like nope, that's wrong. So it is a very hot topic, I would say.
Weird Hill. I always thought of zombies, the danger of being zombies, and the thing that made me think, why would I be afraid of a zombie? Is that they're unrelenting. They never stop. They don't sleep, even when you sleep. They don't. I don't know if anybody's ever seen the movie It Follows. Is a very good horror film about something being relentless and stalking you and never giving you a moment's rest. And that, to me, is what's dangerous about, scary about zombies. And zombies tend to happen sometimes to protagonists who are underachievers, like in Shaun of the Dead, right? Someone who's not doing much with their life, and they're being chased by this thing that is single-handed and single-minded and driven to do something. So it's a bit of an antithesis of how they're living their life, with no aim and no direction. these things are, committed and driven to do this one thing. And it's scary to face that, because you aren't that, and there's nowhere that you go that you're safe. And even when you sleep, they're around looking for you.
Yeah, and that is one of the things that's scariest, is that they are relentless. I mean, even in death, they don't stop. They're relentless. So I always wondered, why is it that destroying the brain, is key to stopping the zombie?
Destroying the brain is how we got here. Are we talking about the movie still?
Are we creating zombies? Oh no, we're killing zombies.
The whole theory behind the zombie brain was the fact that when a person was dead and you had the undead, the fact that the brain lives longer than most other organs in the body, and that it still holds an electrical charge. And so that kind of spanned from, it would still be able to do basic motor functions, and that basic motor function would be eating. And so
eating other people.
Yep. And so the whole, everything else is basically lifeless. The heart isn't really beating, the lungs aren't really breathing, nothing else is really controlling it. Your brain is your central point. That is the thing that is controlling the zombie. So
I wonder too if it's a little bit of, the brain is where we keep if you had to say you're anything, you would say you are your mind, right? Like if there's anything that's uniquely you,
sure,
it's in your mind. So destroying that is the final death of these things that exist. So yeah, that's really interesting though. I always took it your way to be that, that's the thing that controls the basic motor functions. But sometimes you see something like The Walking Dead where the zombies are so far decomposed that's not possible. There's still a functioning brain inside that head. Like, there's just, it strains credulity even for a zombie film.
Right. Well, zombies fall apart very quickly, pun intended, under any kind of scientific scrutiny. So it's kind of interesting that people have debates over what is and what is not a zombie, and how they could exist.
It's that social tie of, is it, we could actually have a zombie apocalypse because we could have a virus, and it would turn everybody into walking zombies where they would have basic motor functions and not be able to know who they are or what they're doing, kind of thing. So the only other thing I wanted to say is part of the music, because I mentioned it earlier. One of my all-time favorite scenes in any movie is from Shaun of the Dead, and it's in the pool, or in the Winchester, when they start attacking the bar owner while Queen is playing, and it's Don't Stop Me Now, and that whole scene with the pool sticks and the fighting and how it's, as you mentioned, cued to music is probably, Shaun of the Dead could be on TV, TBS with commercials, and I could be completely just being like, yeah, I know that because I can kind of hear it. I will stop and watch that scene every time. I adore that scene. It is so much fun. It is so entertaining. I used to be a DJ at a karaoke bar, and we used to mimic that scene just for that. And I don't know. That is probably one of my favorite all-time scenes in a movie, is that scene. So that was
and think about, and again, it not only is it the music, but it goes back to the editing too. Think about cutting that together to that rhythm.
Yeah,
having the right footage to cut that together and time that just right. And it's
even his mom is bouncing.
Right. At some point, they're kind of getting into it a little bit.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
Great stuff.
We got 2 minutes, man. This Twinkie thing ain't over yet.
I have.
This is fantastic, by the way. We're not even talking about the movie anymore. We're just kind of talking about zombies.
I actually have a book that is the Zombie Survival Guide, but the second book that I have that is just as good is Cooking During the Zombie Apocalypse, and it talks about how to take things like grass and finding cans and learning about what you can make out of the world around you during a zombie apocalypse to still survive and cook and make fancy dinners and such. It's quite interesting, so I recommend that.
Okay, so
oh wait, we're not doing recommendations. Sorry.
So what exactly was their plan for turning off the ride? Like they got on the ride, the big, I'm gonna call it the Galleon, because here in Central Iowa we have Adventureland, unrelated to the Jesse Eisenberg movie, but here it's called the Galleon, and it's like a big giant swing. It's a great ride, but like it's my understanding that you have to like, you can't turn it on. Well, you could turn it on and jump in, but you're not getting off. So
right, this is true.
The ending was a big problem for me in the first place, as it made those two girls like the dumbest people. Like, how would they not think turning all that shit on was going to attract anybody?
Yeah.
Well, and part of it was I don't remember her name. Emma Stone's character. What was her name?
Wichita.
It was her trying to kind of, in a way, fool her sister into believing that this was a safe place. She may have known better, but it was all part of the ruse to try to make her feel better.
There was almost a resignation. Like, they're like, we're not going to win this, so let's go out and,
But then they got on like the Falling Star ride, the thing that dropped, like that right there. That's just dumb. Like,
that's called the Space Shot at Adventureland. Again, unrelated to the Jesse Eisenberg movie of the same name.
But again,
probably legally mentioned.
Probably one of the dumbest things to get on to try and stay away from zombies.
True.
I'm sorry.
In their defense, is there any ride that's good to,
No, I wouldn't have turned all the shit on in the first place. But I'm a smarter zombie survivor than that. So
obviously you have 2 books.
I know.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's put it to a vote. Gabe.
Yeah, I have to make it a forfecta, or what would we call it? Shaun of the Dead for me.
All right. Hey, Tom.
Yeah, I have to go Shaun of the Dead as well. And I just have to tell you, I'm working on the movie poster, as I usually during the show. Jesse Eisenberg's hair is a fucking bitch to cut out. and I only say that, no offense, I have the exact same hair as Jesse Eisenberg. It is like, I would not want anyone to have to Photoshop out my hair. Anyway, sorry.
Kyle.
Yeah, I'm going with Shaun of the Dead as well.
All right, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm also in the forfecta era, so Shaun of the Dead.
All right. Well, I do not have any overall because we have a lot. We already did a lot of trivia, and we kind of talked about a lot of what I had down for overall. So,
sorry.
Let's move on to recommendations. No need to be sorry. We'll start it off with Tom.
So I usually recommend a Danny Boyle movie, because if he does a movie from this genre, I usually recommend it. But since Mike was being a total bitch and saying like it's not a zombie movie,
he says it's not a zombie movie.
I have a backup because I knew you were going to do that. So
wait, I want to know what movie we're talking about here.
28 Days Later.
Yeah.
Greatest non-zombie movie of all time.
Correct. He keeps saying that it's not a zombie movie. And everyone's like, it is a zombie movie. And Danny Boyle's like, it's not a zombies. Those aren't zombies.
What is his argument?
They're not dead.
They're not dead. Yeah, it's a virus.
Zombieland is also not a...
So once again, this goes back to that social conflict that I was talking about. It is a hot topic.
I don't shop at Hot Topic, but anyway... my recommendation, I'm going to go with Emma Stone. And someone mentioned this movie earlier tonight too. I'm going to recommend Cruella because it was an absolute freaking blast. It was funny. It was gorgeously shot. I think it's a pretty safe bet. Well, I don't know. Macbeth looks like it may put it in for the running, but it's definitely in the running for best costumes at the Oscars, which is not a category I get very involved in, but like it stood up and took notice. And the music in it, like I think Edgar Wright probably stood up and clapped when the soundtrack came up in the credits for Cruella, because it was so thought out and well done. And it wasn't just, oh, this would be a good song here. They actually put a lot of thought into it. And Emma Thompson is no one chews scenery like her in this movie. So I don't think Disney got off on the right foot when they started doing the whole let's examine our villains thing, but they've really hit their stride. And I think they're learning that if we do this right, we can make more money. You make more money with a good movie than a bad movie. So I think, so I would recommend Cruella for all of those reasons I just named.
All right.
+1.
Interesting. You know, that's the kind of movie that I wonder about the advertising, because I've seen ads for it and I have no interest in it whatsoever. But maybe it's because I'm not the target market.
No,
but
it's fantastic.
Yeah, I would have never thought that from just seeing the ads and that kind of thing. I would have avoided it altogether.
I was lukewarm to it, and then my daughter and my wife saw it, and they're like, "You need to watch this." And then the next night they watched it again, and then they finally got me to watch it on the third time. And I hate that when everyone else in the room has seen it multiple times, and you're the first one. It's like they're just staring at you for every joke. I hate that.
Oh, are you gonna laugh? Are you gonna laugh here?
Yeah. Did you think that was funny? But I started finding jokes that they hadn't found the first 3 viewings. So, anyway, yeah, I definitely recommend Cruella because it really is. It's really good. Really loved it.
All right.
Cool.
Kyle.
I'm glad you guys didn't have me go first this time. So I knew it wasn't a setup. Last time. So I'm going to recommend an abstract concept now, just to piss you all off. No, I'm just kidding. I'm actually going to give it's a show I think people should watch, but I still have problems with it. And it's a Netflix show, and it's called Midnight Mass. I'm not sure if anybody else has seen it other than me. But it is a different take on a horror film. It feels very much like a really good Stephen King novel, if you're into that type of horror. It's great with mystery and suspense. The acting in it is phenomenal. Mike Flanagan did it, who did The Haunting of Hill House. And it feels very much in that vein. Has great scares that don't feel cheap. It has a lot of, existential big questions in it. It's very monologue heavy. So if you're not into that, I totally get it. But to me, it felt like a really good Stephen King story. And I enjoyed most of it. I had some problems with pieces. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's worth a watch, if nothing more for the atmosphere and the awesome cinematography.
All right. Thank you, Kyle. Andrew?
Yeah, I really wanted to pull out a fun zombie movie. And I struggled with what I wanted to do because I have 2 of them. So I'm going to save the second one. We can talk about it after because I still think it deserves some fun. But the one I'm actually going to recommend is actually a zombie movie. It's from 1984, and it is one of this actor's very first movies. He was in Star Trek. Star Trek. Which one was it? He plays Chakotay as the commander. Star Trek Voyager, and it is Night of the Comet, and it is definitely your traditional 80s B zombie horror movie. There are some zombies in it, even though the zombie apocalypse is happening around them. But basically a comet comes by and turns most people into zombies, or it kills them and turns them into dust that you can vacuum up. And it is the most bizarre. It is low budget and it is hilarious. Catherine Mary Stewart is in it. Kelly Maroney is in it. It is a classic 80s movie that it's a lot of fun. It is definitely not probably a winner of anything, but it is a blast to watch. So, Night of the Comet.
All right.
From 1984.
Thanks, Andrew. Gabe?
Well, I'm going to go a little off genre here. Well, a lot off genre. It's not a zombie thing at all.
Oh, geez.
Jill and I have been watching a show called 9 Perfect Strangers. And to be honest with you, to be forthcoming, we haven't finished it yet. But I have enjoyed it way more than I expected to up to this point. It's really well written. It's well acted. I have enjoyed it quite a bit. And people like Melissa McCarthy she shows that she's, she can do comedy and drama kind of at the same time. And I just think it's really well done, and it's been very engaging so far. I just hope there have been a few shows that we've watched in the recent past where the ending was a little bit disappointing. I hope this one pays off. But I've enjoyed it very much so far. So I would recommend, at least at this time, 9 Perfect Strangers.
All right. Were you upset that shoot, what was his name in Perfect Strangers, Kyle?
Balky Bartakamos?
Yes.
Balky?
Yeah, it was that Balky wasn't in the show.
Dude, you could have totally got him. He's not working.
Yeah, he's not.
He is working. He is working.
Where?
No.
Yes, he does. He does audiobooks. He did a series of audiobooks about, seriously, it's called The President's Vampire. And it's about a vampire assassin that works for the White House. It's 3 novels. They're fucking amazing. They're so awesome.
Oh my God.
He's been
I
around
need
for like
this.
200 years. He's been around for 200 years. So he works for Secret Service, but he's also an assassin. Oh my God. Seriously. It's
Okay.
Richard Farnsworth. He's fantastic. It's so
All right.
good. Yeah.
Because I love the
I think that
Abraham
was
Lincoln
just like another
Vampire Slayer.
recommendation.
No,
Yeah.
Oh my God, what's his name? The guy who plays Balky. He read the audiobooks for them, and he's very good.
Awesome.
Not a recommendation, but read it.
All right. So Tom had brought up, you guys had talked a lot about typecasting and about, how Jesse Eisenberg, I don't like Jesse Eisenberg either, but how they're just typecast. So I started thinking, well, there's kind of a comedy horror movie that I really enjoy. And in fact, I believe Kyle went to Minnesota with me to see it. I can't remember if you went with us, but we also met the star of the movie and director. It is mistaken for his character Ash from the Evil Dead trilogy. Bruce Campbell is forced to fight a real monster in a small Oregon town, and it's My Name is Bruce. So essentially, this small town in Oregon gets a monster, and they get Bruce Campbell there, who thinks he's just there to make it to come in and be. They're just having like a Bruce Campbell day, and they actually want him to fight the monster, and it's absolutely great. And he actually talks about it in one of his books about how he had to make the movie and everything. But yeah, check out My Name is Bruce.
Yeah, very funny film. It's brilliant.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Let's poke the monkey.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner by decision is Shaun of the Dead!
Bill Murray saves the day.
Yeah,
It was one vote.
It was
for
Tom.
Zombieland.
yeah.
Tom always protect Sunshine. You guys must know this.
I do protect Sunshine. But no, this was literally, the acting was better in Zombieland. I had a good reason for it, too.
Yeah,
I'm
he
serious.
did. I agree with you guys. This looks really good on paper, and honestly, these are 2 great zombie comedy movies. But yeah, Shaun of the Dead is just better in little ways.
Yeah, it's funny because I thought it was going to be a lot closer. I mean, I said it at the beginning.
Yeah, and I believe everyone took that to heart to prove you wrong.
Yeah. Fuck you, Gabe.
All
I
right.
always movies in Zombieland that are good, enjoyable films, but they just get pitted against something that does it better.
Right.
And that's hard because that's not necessarily their fault.
Right. No, and I mean, we've said that quite a few times where it's like both these movies are great. This one's just better than this one. And it doesn't mean the other one sucks.
No, Zombieland's good, but
Yeah.
Shaun of the Dead.
All right. Here we go. Got my script up. We would appreciate it if you could leave us a review on iTunes or whatever podcasting service you use. It helps us reach new listeners. If you like us, tell your friends. If you hate us, tell your enemies. And we would like to take this moment to give a shout out to one of our fans, the Juicebox Bay, who plays our episodes on her Twitch channel. Thank you for helping spread the word of Cinesmack. You can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Cinesmack. And for November, we head to France as Dunkirk takes on 1917. For Tom, Kyle, Andrew, Gabe, and myself, thanks for listening, and go catch a flick.
As Mr. Sloman always says, there's no I in team, but there is an I in pie. There's an I in meat pie. So the anagram of meat is team. I don't know what he's talking about. Look, that's it.
I can see you guys on camera, and what you are doing is inappropriate, and I love it.
Okay, see, now this isn't going to work. I had a great closing line, and then now if I say, hey, guys, you want some Purell? It sounds horrible.
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.